Welcome to the RPG Rundown. I'm Jeff.
And I'm Seth. And from dungeons to deep space, we've got the systems and stories for your table.
Hey, welcome to episode 2 of the RPG Rundown. We're so glad that you've decided to join us here. Today, we're going to be talking about what is my most anticipated game that is still in development. In fact, it is not yet released. It's the alpha has just come out, but the developers of the game have been letting slide just little pieces, nuggets about the game, just enough to keep us interested and dying to get our hands on it. And that game is DC20 from the Dungeon Coach over on YouTube. And so today we're going to talk about what we know, what we don't know, and what we're very, very excited about. But before we dive into that, let's talk about some TTRPG news. Seth, what do you got for us?
Yeah, we're not going to be super up to date on the news all the time, but these are just some things that we're excited about. And the first one is the release of Phandelver and Below the Shattered Obelisk. This is an updated version and an expanded version of the Lost Mines of Phandelver, which was the intro adventure in the original starter box from 2014.
Yeah.
So we talked earlier, and we've both ran that, and it was a pretty good little starter adventure.
Oh, yeah. Lost Mines was great.
Yeah, but it only took you from levels 1 to 5. And this is going to take characters from level 1 to level 12. So that's exciting. And, I do actually look forward to maybe picking this up at some point. I'm not in a point where I'm ready to run it right now, but I did like it. And so I look forward to doing that. It's interesting because at the time the starter box, while it was one of the best starter boxes at the time, was eclipsed by the Essentials box. Did you pick that up as well? I don't remember.
Yes, I did. I did actually. I picked up.
Okay.
I think I got both. I got the starter and the Essentials right at the same time.
And the Essentials was fantastic, and it was built upon the success of the starter box. And gave everyone really what you needed. It gave you like the miniature DM screen, like the kind of thicker card stock, so it's not like a full DM screen. But it gave more dice, gave better rules for everything, as well as more accessories to go with it, and a different adventure as well.
Right.
But one of the things that was cool about that Essentials box was that you got a download code for that on D&D Beyond. And then you also got, for free, they also had a continuation of adventures to create a miniature campaign out of it. So those were free to everybody, but the adventure from the box was included as a code. And so you had a pretty nice little adventure. So this is nice because it kind of gives the Lost Mines of Phandelver the same treatment of having a full campaign-worthy adventure now. And so that's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, it looks very good too. So it still goes through. I don't want to add any spoilers, but it still goes through to the big ending. But then the story continues beyond that, which I think is really cool. And it's funny. And I actually started with Lost Mines and then quickly turned it into like a homebrew version of Lost Mines. And where I was taking my players, ideally is really similar to what they did here. So that was kind of cool to see the direction. And my DMs out there can go check it out and understand a bit more about the story. My players, let's just wait for the DM to show it to you.
Yeah, and great, like I said, that's something great that's coming out soon. We both play 5e, and so we both DM 5e, and so that's kind of what we're in right now. But that's also why we're doing this podcast, so that we can explore more. But what's some other TTRPG news that we have at the moment that's just kind of cool and fun?
The next one is a bit controversial. It is the 1D&D VTT. And it's not officially out or anything like that, but playtests have been commencing. And there's been a multitude of YouTubers now that have been able to go to the playtest. There's some, some footage out. I don't know. I do say I have mixed feelings about it. A lot of people, they don't love that D&D Beyond is like owning everything D&D related. Well, yes, but I'll be honest. All my players use D&D Beyond, and so I'm kind of okay with that. But if you actually look at it, I know that Seth, you've actually used Tailspire, so you can relate it a little bit closer to that. But
Yeah.
I've heard some people say that it's really similar to like Tailspire meets like Baldur's Gate. Like it's a 3D game engine that you're running, but you still have your tokens and your minis, and there's like animations and things that take place. It is very impressive looking. Um,
Yeah, it really does. When I saw the preview originally,
mhm,
look like Tailspire. I mean,
right.
very similar. I'm sure it's built on a different engine, and is going to have probably a larger team of developers
Mhm.
working on it
Oh,
because
sure. Yeah.
obviously Wizards of the Coast. Um, but it looks very similar, and so similarly,
Mhm.
it's the you know, static tokens that are animated through spells and attacks
Right.
and the environment. Whereas in
Mhm.
the tokens themselves won't be animated. It's not
Right.
like you're going to see arms and legs move as they swing a
Yeah.
sword.
Yeah, they act more like a token
Yeah,
on a table, and so,
exactly.
when
Exactly.
a spell is, like, cast and it hits something, you'll see the token kinda shake a little bit from the explosion, or you'll see, like, the magic missiles shoot out of one. I will say some of the animations I seen were really cool, like, there was one where there's an Ankh egg, and it actually, like, climbs up out of the ground. Climbing maybe is a bit, it animates up out of the ground, and the token just
Right.
plops down right there in front. I've heard like the locations themselves will be like kind of animated. So if you're there in this house and the floor falls out, then the floor in the actual scene that you're playing in falls out, and the tokens tumble down to like the dungeon or whatever. Like
Yeah.
that stuff really sounds cool. I think the biggest concern that I've heard is microtransactions, which it's going to come with the territory. I think that you mentioned before, you're pretty certain there will be like some third parties and stuff available, which I really hope so. Um, Overall, I think it looks very good. And with that said, there is a multitude of VTTs out there, and I think everybody kind of has their favorite. I know Seth, you and I use different VTTs,
Yep.
and actually, we currently use different VTTs. You're kind of selling
Right.
me on Albert 2.0. I'm not gonna lie, you kind of are. It's looking real good.
it is cloud based now,
That is
and
nice.
so you're not having to run anything. And
Yeah.
yeah, I'm really liking everything about it. Uh, and I really have always liked Owlbear. It's very
hmm
simple, very easy to run, and I haven't
That's what I like
tried
about it.
2.0 until now. Um, but I'm excited to use it for now because I am really excited for Alchemy RPG
Alchemy is so good.
as a
Yeah.
VTT, but the tactical side, the maps and tokens side of things, is
It's
just not
lacking right
finished
now.
yet. It's just
Yeah.
not finished. I mean,
Yeah.
they're
We
not
we both
even.
tried it for our campaigns,
We
and
did,
and it's just
and technically they're not even in 1.0 yet. Still in
right.
beta essentially.
Still very. I mean,
Um,
I will say when the tactical side, the maps and tokens and all that, once that gets straightened out with Alchemy, I could
yeah,
see me fully switching to Alchemy. I really enjoyed that
honestly,
software.
yeah, honestly, I do too. I mean, I did
Yeah.
back the Kickstarter for Alchemy
It,
RPG.
it is it is and
Um,
like I'm saying that
so yeah,
like right now it's not for my table, but in the future I think it will be.
yeah, 100%. But for everyone out there, if you need something simple and free,
hmm
honestly, Owlbear can't be beat.
hmm
It's
And if you like to
owlbear.rodeo.
mhm.
um,
And if you like to
yeah,
overcomplicate things and give yourself a really big headache and like have a ton of prep time, but get to make really cool looking stuff, you should check out Foundry VTT,
yeah,
which is what I
and
currently use.
and have a minimum buy-in of $50. So
Yes, that's true. 50 bucks and you own it. But if you're
yeah,
like
yeah.
me and your internet is terrible, and so you can't actually host it for your players, you get to pay someone else a monthly fee to host it.
Oh, ouch.
I know I'm selling it hard. It is really fun to play with, though.
It is a very
It's
robust and
powerful.
fantastic system though. So
So what
um,
I like about it is the third party plugins, and so like
yeah.
there's plugins do everything. Like I have a plugin that literally when a creature gets below 50% health, they automatically get bloodied and they leave a blood trail everywhere they go on the map. And I have like when someone casts a spell, it actually has an animated spell. Which yes, I get the one D&D VTT is going to do that fancier, but like there's just plugins that like the community's made that does literally everything.
Yeah.
But it is super overcomplicated.
No, I mean it's one of the most widely supported. I mean
That's very good. Yeah.
it along with just a few of the others. So,
Right.
but yeah, there was one other thing on the news, and I'm springing this on Dr. Hill's right at the
Oh,
moment.
go for it.
But
Spring away.
recently, and so by the time this comes out, it'll be a couple weeks old, maybe. But the Critical Role campaign setting, Tal'Dorei Reborn, has been published on. First, big news, it was published on D&D Beyond. So this is the first third-party content that has been added to D&D Beyond since Wizards of the Coast purchased it.
Right.
Because Tal'Dorei Reborn was published by Critical Role. It was not published under Wizards of the Coast like their first two books were. However, the important part and the newsworthy part is that it was also added to the Demiplane website as well, which is, if you don't know what Demiplane is, it is a D&D Beyond competitor, if you will, that is an open system. So it runs 5e, or I say it runs. It has they call each category for a game a nexus, and so there's a nexus for 5e, and this Tal'Dorei Reborn was published under the 5e nexus. There's a nexus for Pathfinder. There's a nexus for Avatar. There's a whole bunch of them, and more are coming. But it's the same robust tools that are in the works for character creation and management of NPCs and rule books and stuff like that as D&D Beyond is. They've opened it up to cover so many more game systems. So,
which is awesome.
The important part is that Critical Role has it on both places, and that is definitely newsworthy because, newsworthy on Wizards of the Coast part because D&D will support third party, which is what they said, and this is the first time they've actually, followed through with that. And then second, the fact that something as popular as Critical Role is not beholden just to Wizards of the Coast. It's going to be available other places. So in digital.
Yeah, that's huge.
So yeah, I think that's
awesome.
That's pretty fantastic.
Absolutely. All right, well, now I think we'll go and jump into, the content we're going to be talking about today, and that is the game DC20 RPG from the Dungeon Coach. Again, that is the placeholder name. The official name, I don't think is out yet. I do believe I remember hearing him say that DC20 is currently like the code name for it. So I don't know what the actual name is going to be, but the way that he describes on his website is a brand new tabletop role-playing game that is designed to be, listen to this, efficient, simple, intuitive, tactical, fast-paced, and customizable, right? There's a lot of stuff going on there, but let's talk about it and see. The type of system it is, as the name kind of implies, it is a D20-based system. It is, I think, relatively similar to D&D in that, but with that, he's made a lot of changes to it. So about the character creation, Seth, have you looked a lot into the character creation of the game?
So I really haven't. And also too, if you're following along in the VOD, check out the presentation. It should be up in video format for the podcast, as well as on the Love Thy Nerd YouTube channel. More about that later. And but if you're listening, follow along by all means. But if you want to see it, we do have a presentation for that as well. So, but yeah, the character creation I have not looked into very much. I'm not a Patreon of the Dungeon Coach, who is the main author for the DC20. That's why it's called DC20, obviously. But yeah, I am curious to see it more, and I know they're supposed to have a public rules reveal soon.
Yes,
but we're not quite. He hasn't announced exactly when that's coming yet.
Correct. So I do know that he is going to be rolling out the alpha the last I'd seen, I think he put out a video about 3 weeks ago saying the alpha was very close. Of course, that'll be for highest tier patrons first, and as they get it like lined out after he gets his feedback and stuff, he's going to start putting it out to lower level patrons until eventually it's released to the public.
Yeah.
But I will say, have you heard of the game Cogent, Seth?
I don't think I have actually.
Okay, I had never heard of it until I heard him talk about it when he was talking about his character creation.
Okay.
And so I guess Cogent is a very simplified game, and like that. That he used three stats as an example, and he talks about how
Mhm.
their character creation is open, right? So like in D&D, like if you want to be a barbarian, you go heavy strength, right? That's the only way you're going to be able to do it.
Right. Right.
If you want to be, a fighter, you go heavy dex, right? Like depending on what you want to do. But he talked about in Cogent how they actually designed it to be open, where you could be, say, a short sword fighter, and you could use strength or agility or
Right.
intelligence.
Right.
And so he talked about, if in Cogent, he actually helped design parts of Cogent, which is why he's kind of borrowing from it. But like, you could be a short sword fighter using strength where you're coming in with those big heavy hits, right? Or you could be agility where you're the quick moving, or you could be actually an intelligent fighter where you're looking and planning out your moves and watching the enemy and kind of being like a battlefield conductor.
I do
And
remember him talking about the openness of being able to
yes, yeah.
choose strength or agility or dexterity, whatever you want to call it, um, for different things, as well as even having certain checks and saves
Hmm.
be be different for different characters in that
Right.
same regard. So
Yeah, exactly. So he's one to like I really like this idea too, so that and it's a game. People are going to find ways to break the game, right? It doesn't matter what
yes,
game it is. The
obviously.
people have builds in D&D that are just absolutely ridiculous. But I do like the concept that you can really build out your character any way you want. You don't have to build a dumb barbarian, right? You can build a
Yeah.
barbarian that is intelligent and knows how to use his brute force in an intellectual way. Like you don't have to break your character like in this area to benefit this. I don't know how all that's going to be done, but just the concept itself, I really I liked that. With that said, he's released some of the classes. I don't think all the classes have been released yet, but at least the classes that he has actually put in videos. There are two new classes that are outside of D&D 5e. Uh, which have you looked at these here? They're
Yeah, so
the
I know
Scion Monk.
the
Go
video you pulled the images from, and so
ahead.
again, if you're watching the VOD, the images here were pulled
Yes.
from one of his videos. But yeah, I mean, like, I'm excited looking at the ones that are out now and the ones that are
Mhm.
coming later. So I'll continue there.
Yes, yes. Yeah. So the two new ones that we have here is the Scion Monk and the Warlord Warrior, that are new. But I do also think it's interesting how the classes are kind of like categorized in Mage, Warrior, Warden,
But I think the
Specialist,
Scion
Zealot.
is separate from the monk.
Oh, I think you're right. I think, yeah, because
Yeah,
that's like technically
they're
under
both under
Enlightened.
enlightened. Yeah,
Interesting. Okay. Yes. Which that kind of plays in the sign. He talked about how they will have more like a psychic powers and stuff of that sort. Um, which actually kind of plays into the next thing I'm kind of excited about. There's not going to be an AC in DC20. You want to tell us about that, Seth?
yeah. So, um, looking at the physical defense, it talks about instead of AC, it's going to have physical defense, and it's going to represent the difficulty of hitting a creature with natural sources of damage.
Hmm.
Um, but it's going to be, and then obviously here we've got like kind of the different types here. But I mean, like, I don't know if I've caught some of that. So you remind
Hmm.
me, how is it that is he
Yeah.
doing kind of the same system of
So yeah, the idea here is that you won't necessarily have an AC. You'll have a physical defense, which is your defense against fire and piercing and
right?
and slashing, bludgeoning, right? Those kind of damage. But then you'll also have a mental defense,
Yeah.
which is your defense against. He uses force and holy and psychic and unholy, which is essentially his necrotic.
So it kind of
Um,
separates the two.
yeah. So
essentially.
you could have, you know, a tank that's a tank against physical, but he's really weak to mental, right? And then at the same time, you may have a mage that is a tank to mental, but obviously super weak to physical, and kind of adds a bit more complexity in the game there. That it's not just who has the highest armor. And he also said that he really wants, like, if you're making an attack, you're the one that rolls the dice, so no saving throws. So a mental
Right.
attack is actually going to be an attack that you roll the d20 against the mental defense of whomever you're attacking.
And for the mental and physical defense, are those still going to
Mhm.
be an AC style of number that you have to beat in the roll?
Uh, yes, yes. So they
Okay.
will be like, yeah, like an AC type of number that it comes up with your certain bonuses that you get, and like I think mental comes from your wisdom or intellect
Sure.
stat,
Absolutely.
and so it gets built up like that, and same with physical. He had that outlined in the video, but I did not take notes on it. But yeah, so it is built up in a similar like
Okay.
AC, but instead of AC, it's just PD and
Right.
MD.
And MD.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, and that's like I said, it's still the similar mechanic
Hmm.
of having a number you got to beat. Because
Exactly.
like I said, there are other games. Last week we talked about Daggerheart being
Hmm.
um, having an instead of an armor class, which is the number you have to beat, there's a like armor gives a certain different types of armor gives a different type of difficulty to hit. In other games like the Star Wars one, it's called soak, and so certain amount of your damage is soaked up by the armor you have every time
Right.
you get hit, unless they roll high enough that they get past that armor.
Sure. Yeah.
So it acts different. So this is
Hmm.
again, like you said, this is a similar D20 system. It's not 5e.
Right.
It's not even a simplified version of 5e. This is just his kind of original
Hmm.
system, but it is a D20 system still.
Right. Yeah.
Um, and then what about the actions? Tell us about that.
Yeah, so this is probably what I am the most excited for, and as someone who loves 5e but feels the drag of combat every time it happens, and I'm a
Mm-hmm.
combat guy. Like, I love combat. I want to get into the combat both as the DM and as the player, but we all know that 5e combat can feel really slow, right?
Especially
Which
the
is
higher you
amazing.
go and the more people
Yeah.
you have, or the more enemies you have.
Yeah.
If you want to have a horde of little creatures,
Oh, takes
and
forever.
you want them to all attack separately, as opposed to
Hmm. Hmm.
maybe as a horde,
Then like group initiatives, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
It can take a
it
while.
can take a while
And
for sure.
and then I also find, of course, my home game, I run a game with 8 to 9 players. So big game, big team. And what I've found is, like, we can have a short combat that takes 3 hours. And in that amount of time, my players are losing so much interest. And so I've homebrewed some stuff to make combat more interesting, to make turns more fluid, put more pressure on, like things like that. But he actually, and my Pathfinder players here will know this a bit better than even I know it, but he's actually bringing in action points. And
Yes,
so with action points, you get 4 action points, and from what he said, there will be opportunities to go up to like 5 action points, but for the most part, you'll have 4 action points, and these action points can be played at any time, even out of your turn. So you, instead of doing like one reaction and now you're done, you actually have actions that you can take off your turn. You can
mm-hmm.
obviously do a reaction attack off your turn if someone moves out of your range like you normally would. But you could also move off of your turn. You could provide help off your turn. You could grapple off your turn. And so you have a bit more opportunity to be like tactical with that. And then any action point you use off your turn, you lose that on your turn. So let's say I do 2 reactions, then whenever it comes back to my turn, now I only have 2 action points. And action points, movement's an action point, attack is an
Right.
action point,
But I think that's
things like that.
great for in combat that involves a
Hmm.
lot more characters or creatures.
Right.
You can have a mixed order of
Hmm.
things, or you can have interaction from a player that is 5 away in the turn order, but they have something they can do right then, and
Exactly.
it and
Yeah.
it also helps keep players paying attention.
Yeah,
who it's not their turn. So that's
right.
I am
Because there's an opportunity to do something.
excited to
Yeah.
try it because I've only played a little bit of Pathfinder,
Hmm.
like a very like a one shot basically. And so yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing his take on it because I think that
Yeah.
the multi action system
Hmm.
could be really fun for that.
Yeah, and so I know that in the past I've talked to like other D&D friends. We've never played Pathfinder, and I've always thought like action points seem really broken. Like you're telling me I can make like 4 attacks on my turn, like I'm just sitting back here, four
Hmm.
fireballs in a row or like whatever. So he actually has imposed a multiple action or repeated action penalty, and so each time you repeat the same action within your set of 4 action points, you get disadvantage. And so then it goes one disadvantage where you take the lowest of 2 dice, double disadvantage where you take the lowest of 3 dice, and quadruple disadvantage where you take the lowest of 4. So it's not beneficial to attack, 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 right?
Yeah.
It really does benefit you more to move and attack or help and attack, which his help action is really cool too. You can give advantage like you would in 5e, or you can give a help die, which is a D8. And that you get to
Nice.
give a D8 to someone and actually help them. There are certain rules, like if you're going to help someone on an attack, you need to be within the same square as them or the enemy they're attacking, and things of that sort. You also get something called empowered action points, which I thought was kind of cool. And it's the idea that you basically, for the cost of 2 action points, you can give yourself advantage. And so, one strategic way he talked about using this is say you did want to do a double attack, you could do one normal attack and then an empowered action attack. So, the next one is just a straight roll rather than disadvantage, but it does burn up 2 of your action points.
Yeah.
Uh, so just a few different ways I think that you can handle combat. I don't know, a little bit more tactically,
Yeah,
depending on how your play style really.
I
But
think it's going to be fun to find that out, like how
mhm.
that really works.
Yeah,
And I know that he did some play tests with other creators and developers at Gen Con this year. And so I look forward to seeing all the
I'll
edits and
mention it.
stuff that comes out of there. So, but yeah, that's like I
Hmm.
said, I think that's going to be a fun system. So,
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. This is probably the one that I've been following the closest, and it's just because I already watched a lot of the Dungeon Coach's content anyway. He's like a really outside the box thinker, and
yeah.
I like to think I am, and so I try to implement some of his changes and stuff to homebrew things. Um, but yeah,
Well,
I'm pretty
yeah,
excited about that
he I mean, he started with obviously that other RPG, but then he's also done a lot of 5e
one. Hmm.
um like systems and stuff.
Yeah, he's still. I mean, even still, like his most recent videos are like 5e things. And he talks about even his action point system, how you can bring it into 5e and still use it and stuff. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, tons of good content there. Um,
Yeah.
but
Well, so how do you think it compares? Like what do you think are some advantages or disadvantages of what we know so far? We don't know a whole lot,
right.
but what's something that um you see as a big difference?
So, okay, for me, the biggest difference, I do think I'm trying to think of my table, like my online table. I don't think we'll have much problem with like a transition if we wanted to move to the system. But my in person, they're not a bunch of tabletop nerds, right? They're like I got teenagers and wives and just I got a
Yeah.
whole like after church group that we meet and play, and so like completely changing system I think is going to be really because we sort of like you taught me D and like 5e from ground up. I've
Right.
taught them 5e from the ground up, and so I think anytime we change systems is going to be tricky. But I think like the biggest change for me, I think, is going to be the action points, and
Yeah.
that may very well change when we actually dive in. Okay, I take it back. Like the action points, and I think the defense, the physical and mental, because now you have to be aware. Okay, this attack. What is this attack attacking? Is this attack
Mhm.
attacking physical? Is this attacking mental? And now your players got to keep up with that. You as the DM have to keep up with that. And stuff too. So I think that is going to be a big change. But I see both of those at least as benefits. I see those as positive changes.
Yeah. No,
But
I
of
think
course, it
that's
really depends how it plays out.
I think those are probably some of the biggest that we know of so far. I think a lot of the rest of it will be um, familiar enough that someone
Mhm.
coming from 5e would be able to understand it. Knowing rolling a d20, rolling a ability check for
Right.
trying to do something. Now the benefit is how fluid and flexible the system is, because he wants
Hmm.
it to be an open, flexible system. And so I think that will translate well for someone coming from 5e, because he's trying to make something new
Right.
that's
Yeah.
easy for people. So I think that's going to be good. Absolutely. So
Yeah.
awesome. Well, what about when does it come out? That's the question everyone
So
wants to know.
yes, I wish I could answer that. Like I said, it's funny. I'd watched as I was doing a bit more research, trying to actually jot down some notes. I watched a video he put out 2 months ago, and he's like, "The alpha is very close. By the time this video comes out, the alpha will probably almost be out." And I'm like, "Oh, that was 2 months ago. The alpha must be out." And then I went to
Yeah.
his most recent video, and he's like, "Yeah, the alpha's still a couple weeks away." And so that is just the alpha. Once the alpha is out, they'll get all his feedback. So he's working with him as the primary writer and designer, and then he has a team of about 10 other specialists that are kind of reviewing, looking over rules. They're doing play tests, and they're kind of making changes, stuff like that. So I don't know if we know when there'll actually be a playable version for like non-patrons. But I do expect the highest level patron, in which he did say, if you want to be the highest level, it's $25. Join for that month, get the
Well,
alpha, and
that's the
then
minimum to get
cancel it.
access to
Yeah.
the alpha.
So
So
I'll be honest, I will probably do that when it drops. And so I don't know, maybe I don't know if I don't think there's gonna be like an NDA or anything on it when it drops. So if not, maybe that'll be something we play test when the alpha is available. But yeah, so at least the alpha itself is a few weeks out, is what we've known from his last video about it.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, I expect the beta won't even be out till 2024 at this point.
I agree. I think
Um,
you're right.
and then maybe it actually launches, mid to late 2024. I
Mhm.
don't know. Once the beta comes out, it could be really short. We'll see.
Very, very
But
true. Like, and once he gets back the alpha test and stuff, it may be polished up, get it ready for prints and PDFs and stuff like
yeah.
that, and ready to go.
But you can definitely find more. It's thedungeoncoach.com, thedungeoncoach.com,
Yep.
and then look at the DC20 RPG. So,
Yep.
so yeah, definitely check it out. So
So and with that, this was episode 2. I know episode 2 seemed a lot like episode 1 without us jabbering about who we are, but this isn't all we're going to be doing. We're actually going to be doing some test plays. And Seth, I know you know a lot more about what's about to happen. So why don't you tell us about it?
yeah, absolutely. So what we will be doing in our regular episodes is that we're going to have one episode a month where we have this kind of discussion, news, other things like that, and then we'll also announce and kind of identify what TTRPG system we're going to test for the month.
Mm-hmm.
And so then in between that episode and the next episode in that month, we're going to have a play session to test it out, a one shot for it. And then we're going to, in the follow-up episode for that month, it will be a review, or primarily a review. We may have guests on who have played that system or who even joined us with that system. Depends, to talk about it. But that's kind of going to be the format. So we'll have one episode that is general in announcing the system, and then the follow up will be a review of that system along with kind of some other normal stuff. So, but for this month, because we're launching in October, as part of the Love Thy Nerd podcast network, we have
Yes.
both been involved with them for a while as fans and friends. You went to Gen Con with them,
I
which is
did.
awesome. And
Still repping the
so,
shirt.
yes, absolutely. I think I repped it last on the pilot. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so we're really excited, and we're going to talk a little bit more about them here in a second. But our first system that we're going to run a one shot to test is going to be Dragonbane.
Oh man.
And
So pumped
super
for this.
excited about this. This is this is another D20 system.
Mhm.
I backed the Kickstarter and picked up the box set, which comes with the core rules and a DM screen and dice, um, and even like miniature tokens and all sorts of stuff. But what's really cool about this system is that it's been around for a long time. It is literally as old as me. Um, because what Dragonbane is essentially, it is a fantasy tabletop role playing game. Their kind of spiel says, full of magic, mystery, and adventure. It is designed from the ground up to facilitate fast and furious play with very little prep time and adventures that are easy to run. So, but where it originated from, this is a new version, a translated new version of Drakar Ok Deminor. I did not say that correctly. I apologize
Sounded perfect to
to
me.
to
Yeah.
the Swedish listeners
Mhm.
because I'm sure we have many of them already.
I guarantee it. Probably in the
But
ones.
it's basically, I think it's roughly translates to like dragons and demons.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, it was Scandinavia, meaning Sweden, Norway, and that region. Their
Mhm.
first and biggest tabletop RPG that launched in 1982. They did not
Mhm.
have D&D back then. They had
Right.
this, and so this is a new and reimagined edition. One foot firmly planted in the heritage of decades of Swedish gaming, and the other in the modern and innovative game design for which Free League Publishing is known worldwide. So yeah, it is from Free League Publishing. If you know me, I love Free League Publishing. I have backed several of their systems,
Nice.
Tales from the Loop, Forbidden Lands, and so when they started putting this out and it was a D20 system, it's different. We'll get into it when we play it and in the review, but it's different in that one is the critical success and 20 is the critical failure. So it's a
That
little
is
different.
interesting. That's
Otherwise,
reversed.
otherwise, I think it is going to be almost a little similar to DC20, and that is it is geared to be very quick, very easy to pick up and play. It's made
Nice.
to be a more simplified system, but I think it's going to be just as fun. So,
That's
so
awesome.
yeah, we're gonna.
I'm pumped to run it.
I know, I'm so
I'm gonna
excited.
I get to play it actually. You're gonna run it.
I am, I am.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're gonna test that, and we will have it for the third episode, which will
Yes.
be we'll have the pilot, and then so normally we're gonna have 2 episodes a month, but
Mhm.
we're gonna have the pilot because we recorded it earlier, and then we're gonna have this episode the following week, and then the third episode the following week. So that way we're get caught up and on schedule for
Right. We'll get back on
moving
schedule.
forward. But
Then we'll
so
have a bi-weekly show.
yes, then it will be
Yeah.
biweekly. Um, but yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun. So, but yeah, that's it for our announcement for which system we're gonna test next.
Mhm.
And then, real quick, you've had a chance to play, right? How's your campaign going?
Yeah, so campaign is going good. We got jumped back in after about a month and a half hiatus. We went through a little spree there where no one could make it. And yeah, we played one. We jumped back in it immediately into a combat where they killed all but one bugbear who was the smart one who did surrender, and his name was Ben. And he reluctantly showed them his camp, where they met his uh, baby pet wolf that he had actually rescued. And anyway, all that to say, they got a stone. There's something weird going on with the stone. The halfling that has it has been woken up in the middle of the night from this stone. And anyway, that's kind of where they're at right now. I will say
Awesome.
the one thing I've been excited about is I've actually developed my own homebrew. I told you I watched the Dungeon Coach too much. I've developed my own homebrew travel system where my goal is to gamify travel, right? So that the
Nice.
travel actually feels like a game as well. And so we use it. I call it the Wayfinder system, but it's We use points, and depending how you do during your travel, you gain points or you lose points. If you're encumbered, you gain half points. If you're too over encumbered, you gain 0 points. And so different ways that I've tied that in. And so my group has been play testing it for me, and it's actually going really good. It's something
Good.
else. I also do also something else controversial. I do XP leveling. And so at the end of every session, we talk
Controversial
about
in today.
controversial. I
Yes.
know. And so at the end of each session, I give them however many travel points they earned, which means I just make little jots in my notebook, and then I let them know how many XP they earn. Because I don't just do combat XP, because I feel like that does create
Oh
murder
yeah.
hobos. And anytime you do any kind of RP earns XP. Anytime you do a successful check, it earns RP, and then of course combat earns RP, but
Yep.
or earns XP. So anyway, long rant there. Tell us what's been going on with Hearth and Hammer.
Well, yes, as you know, Hearth and
Mhm.
Hammer is my campaign. We are homebrewing, and again in this world that I've created called Zenelia. And at the moment, the party is in a fortress that is under siege.
Ooh,
Um,
okay.
and so they are trying to figure out what to do. They recently had um, firearms introduced. Basically, the
Nice.
invading
Yeah.
army is bringing with them firearms, cannons, and the like. So they
Mhm.
are being introduced to them as we speak. And I'm not going to lie, my halfling ranger who has a pet um, giant badger
Mhm.
and who is mute and has to communicate with sign language. Uh, yeah, I'm pretty sure
That's
she's
great.
trying to. She's got this kind of like hand cannon that they captured, and she is
Okay.
definitely trying to mount that to the back of the badger to use.
That would be amazing.
So
Can she
we'll
ride the
see.
Badger?
Yes, I have homebrewed the
Yes.
badger, and she gets to ride it.
Mhm.
And so yes, this is something that is I'm sure going to happen at some point.
This is
So
this is definitely going to end well for you.
I'm excited. Honestly, it's gonna be fun.
See,
Um,
what you got to do is on a critical fail. Have you ever played Super Mario World on the Switch?
Maybe.
Okay, because I had this concept. There's these little things in Super Mario World. I play it with my kids, that you can jump and you get, and basically you become the cannon. You can see your little feet sticking out under the cannon, but it just shoots over and over. So if you're facing your team, you'll shoot them in the back and stuff. And so you gotta, like, we're constantly yelling at each other like, "Move, jump, get out of the way." Yeah, I'm just saying.
Nice.
Crit one, it just starts firing.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun for sure. So, but yeah, so that's where things are going with that, and so that's we're excited
Mhm.
about it too. But real quick before we end, uh, Jeff, what else can you tell us about Love Thy Nerd and our
Yeah,
partnership
so
with them?
we are excited to be part of the Love Thy Nerd podcast network. Love Thy Nerd exists to be the love of Jesus to nerd and nerd culture. I've been a huge fan and friend, like you said earlier, of the guys over at LTN, and honestly, just privileged for this partnership that we get to take part of this and kind
Yeah,
of help out with the TTRPG side. They focus a lot on the tabletop gaming side of things, and when we went to Gen Con, we were very much into that side of things, but fortunately, we get to come in and help out on this TTRPG side. Um, yeah, dude, it's absolutely awesome. Anything you want to say about them?
I mean, you know, just reiterating that they're a fantastic group of people. Absolutely
Mhm.
love them. I got connected with them, several years ago as well. I
Yeah.
haven't been on mission with them at a convention, which is what they do a
Hmm.
lot of,
Oh yeah.
but I was able to attend a convention with a few of them, and yeah, just love everything they're doing. They're fantastic. And then
Hmm.
we had this idea for the RPG rundown for
Yeah.
6 months, and
Oh
it
yeah.
just
Easily.
lined up perfectly that they were like, "Why don't you join with us? We need
Hmm.
more content for this, for tabletop RPGs and in that space." And I know
Oh yeah.
Silver over there, Tierney is doing some cool things there, and so we're excited to be a
Absolutely.
part of it. Thanks for letting us.
Yeah. Absolutely.
um, if you noticed from last week, we got some new badging for
We
LTN,
do.
which you did fantastic on, by the way. Thank you for that.
Thank you very much.
And so yeah, so we're excited. This is going to be posted to the LTN YouTube and podcast feed, and so we are excited to be a part of that. We will have some short form content and probably our live plays of our the RPGs that we test. We will probably
Longer
host
bits.
separately. Yeah, they'll be longer. They're not going to be part of the podcast feed itself, but
Right.
we'll have those hosted separately as well. But
Yeah.
for bi-weekly podcast will be released under them, and we look forward to supporting them and being a part of their network. So we're just pumped and honored and excited to be joining and partnering with them in this ministry. So, but yeah, anything else you want to say on that, or anything else before we get to our outro?
No, I mean, other than if you are listening to this podcast, make sure you go and leave a review. I know that helps an absolute ton, and we hope that you've gained some value. And I hope you're as excited about DC20 as we are. And honestly, I cannot wait to play DC20 and do the test play. It's going to be so much fun.
Absolutely. And again, I know Jeff is streams this, but we'll also probably have some sort of announcement whenever we are going to do our play session for Dragonbane. So look for that. Also, once you've heard this, again, thanks for checking us out. Be sure to like and subscribe on the podcast feed. Check out all the other cool podcasts and things that Love Thy Nerd are doing. Check out their YouTube. If you want to communicate with us, check us out on Twitter right now at the RPG Rundown. And then also, we have another social network. Why don't you tell us about that?
So our other social network that we're going to be doing is our TikTok. And so make sure you guys find us over on TikTok. It'll be at the RPG Rundown. We'll be hosting some of our short form from this, but also some other cool tabletop tools and fun stuff that there is available. We'll put that out there in short form content that is easily digestible and, let's just be honest, fun to watch.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, I think that's about all we have for this episode. We look forward to bringing you a review of Dragonbane in the next episode. And so come check us out for that. Be sure to, get notified when that goes live. But from our table to yours, thank you for joining us on the RPG Rundown.
Until next time, may your rolls be epic and your stories legendary.